Hello, friends. This is Mac Payne, owner and operator of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast, where we bring you news about the Vietnam War and the brave veterans who served there, as told to you by yours truly, a Vietnam veteran. In this short video, I'm going to tell you about the latest podcast episode I just published to my podcast, the Vietnam Veteran News. It has to do with one of the tremendous representatives of the Vietnam veteran generation. One as great as any that ever heeded the call of duty from our country. This Vietnam veteran I will be spotlighting on this podcast episode is none other than Terry P. Richardson. If you've been watching the news, you will notice a few days ago, right there in the White House, President Trump presented Terry with a Congressional Medal of Honor. The event that earned him that award occurred back in 1968 in Vietnam. I was under the impression they gave him a Medal of Honor back then. Apparently, they decided to give him another one or to represent it to him. They talked a little about him in that White House ceremony, but I don't think it did him full justice. So that's why I decided to share on the podcast a full story about Terry and what he did over there in Vietnam that appeared on the U.S. Army website. What could be more accurate? The U.S. Army website? I shared that information to tell you about this great American. My purpose here in this video is to encourage you to go over to the podcast and listen to the full story of Terry P. Richardson. Terry is a great example of the bedrock of America. He grew up in Cass City, Michigan, not too far from Saginaw and Bad Axe. His father had a gas station there in Cass City, and he also had an 80-acre farm. Terry worked on both of them, at the service station and out on the farm. He was just the right age to be drafted during the Vietnam War. When Terry was drafted, he didn't run off to Canada. Where he lived in Michigan, Canada was not that far away. He could easily have just skipped over there and not had to go to Vietnam. But Terry is not that kind of American. Terry was the type person that when your country calls, you answer that call. And he did it quite well in Vietnam. Terry, when he was drafted, did quite well in his training. He was so good, they immediately sent him to the NCO Academy, and he came out as an E6. He'd only been in there a few months. With those stripes on his collar, he went over to Vietnam and was assigned to A Company, 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry, 1st Infantry Division. Back in 1968, they ran into some trouble. Terry reacted like the hero that he is. You really need to go over to the podcast and listen to what Terry did that earned him the Medal of Honor. When you hear these stories, you cannot help but be proud of our American military people and the job they do for our country. It also makes you feel better about the Vietnam War, because when we came home, we didn't get much appreciation, hardly any. Many of us got something a whole lot less than appreciation. We were called names, spit on, other things. And when people discover the greatness of people like Terry Richardson, it should make them feel real bad about what they said about Vietnam veterans, because they could not have been talking about Terry Richardson, because he was a great one. So please, do yourself and your country a favor by going over to the podcast and listening to the story about Terry P. Richardson of Cass City, Michigan. If you do that, I guarantee you, you'll feel better. So that's my message in this video. Go over to the podcast and listen to the episode about Terry P. Richardson. I've made it quite easy for you. All you've got to do is go down below this 1965 vintage Philco TV set and click on the link that will take you straight to the podcast and straight to the episode about Terry. If you cannot access that link on whatever you're watching this video on, no problems. Just go to VietnamVeteran.com, click on it. It'll take you straight to the podcast and straight to that episode. So you have no excuse for not listening to his story. So you have your marching orders, go for it. With that, this is Mac Payne here, closing out this video, thanking you so much for listening to it. Now you can really make me happy by going over and listening to the podcast episode about Terry P. Richardson, which has to be episode 3219. You can't miss it. All you've got to do is go there, sit back, relax, and listen as I tell you the story of Terry P. Richardson and his greatness. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk soon.